What's up, Brian Tong here, and hey, I'm back from CES 2025, and then I got sick, and now my voice is working again, so hey, let's get to it. And this video is all about Apple's 2025 product lineup and what we expect to see this year, and it's gonna be one of Apple's most jam-packed years for new products, product refreshes that haven't seen upgrades in a while, and then their new push into the smart home. So let's start off with what we expect to see in the first half of 2025, and then go from there. Now, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, the first batch of new products this year won't be earth-shattering, but upgrades for the 13-inch and 15-inch MacBook Airs. They are reportedly already in production right now, and they will be getting the latest M4 chip that's currently in the MacBook Pro and iMac. The design is not expected to change either, so it will be an incremental upgrade for the MacBook Airs. Now, there could be a little bit of hardware lull from that point, a waiting period for anything major until the spring, but that's when we're expecting to see a new design for the iPhone SE 4. No home button, it gets Face ID, and a more modern design with enough memory for Apple Intelligence support. Think of its physical design like the iPhone 14 before the dynamic island coming to this new iPhone SE 4. That's what we've been hearing for the longest time, but at the same time, a new rumor report from leaker Evan Blass claims it might in fact bring a dynamic island. And that's why nothing is certain or fact until it's officially announced. But this will be Apple's new entry-level budget iPhone for 2025 and the foreseeable future. Then, during the spring, we're also expecting a new entry-level iPad and new iPad Airs. The new entry-level iPad will reportedly get an A17 Pro chip that matches the current iPad mini and an upgrade to 8 gigs of memory for Apple Intelligence support with no major design changes expected. Then you got the new iPad Airs that will also be more about a spec upgrade and colors. Now, last year's model had an M2 inside, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see Apple put in the M4 chip this year. So does that mean both the iPad Pro and the iPad Air could have an M4 at the same time? Sure, but it's not really an issue to me when Apple's hardware family, including Macs, they also have an M4 in them, and you should really just put the best chip you can in the hardware that's available. Now, we've also heard reports for a while, and now it's more real than ever, that Apple will be announcing their new Home Hub product with this 7-inch display with its own OS that will reportedly be mountable on a wall. Now, I've affectionately called it the HomePad, and yes, people will continue to ask, why can't you just give this functionality to the iPads we already own? And you are not wrong at all to ask that. Gurman reports that Apple has been planning to introduce the HomePad in March, but it might be sometime later in the spring before consumers can actually get their hands on it. Part of the delay might be software, where the expectation is for it to rely on Apple's new App Intense features that still aren't out yet and is expected in iOS 18.4 and iOS 19. So this is just the beginning for Apple to finally, and I really emphasize that word, finally take the smart home seriously. Multiple reports claim a privacy-centric security camera and a Face ID digital doorbell could be new smart home products Apple releases in 2026 next year. So Apple's real smart home journey, this is just the beginning of it if it all comes together, but 2025 is all about laying down that foundation. So that's what we're expecting in the first half of the year, but from March to spring, it feels like there's a little gap there, and that might be the perfect time for Apple to release iOS 18.4. It might even happen earlier than that. Now, the next iOS 18 release should bring the missing features we haven't seen yet, like personalized context, so your iPhone can act like that extension of your brain with all the data on your phone. It knows it, it can organize it, and it can access it. At least that's the promise, and yes, it's a big one. Plus, in-app actions and priority notifications. So by releasing it around this time, that also lays the foundation for their HomePad product to be ready to roll with these new features sometime in spring. Now, they also need to release it then because guess what? June would just be around the corner, and that means WWDC with the latest software upgrades. Now, we know all the Apple OSs will get bumped up, and software doesn't leak the same way that hardware does, but we might be getting our first glimpse of what iOS 19 might look like thanks to a report from Front Page Tech's John Prosser, who created renderings of what he saw, and you can check it out on his YouTube channel. Now, Prosser believes this is a new complete redesign for the camera app in iOS 19. Now, this is just the app, but it starts simple with the option to choose between taking a photo or video, and then you tap that toggle to give you more options like depth for portrait mode control, spatial capture for the Vision Pro, you got panorama, photo styles, and then even more options. All of this using full circle icons as well, which would be a change in design language that is a whole lot more like Vision OS, and you'll even see that opaque glassy texture that's a Vision OS staple too. Now, capturing video also has its own options that are specific to video capture, like slow-mo, time-lapse, action shots, and exposure. And then up top, there are specific settings for the resolution and frame rate, and presumably you could add things like a ProRes video option or not. Now, on my Apple Bits XL podcast before CES, these are the exact type of Vision OS inspired changes that my guest Ray Wong and I talked about, right? That they're really needed to give iOS and macOS a fresh feel, and Vision OS should really be that inspiration behind that. Now, we don't know if that means more significant changes across the entire iOS 19 just yet, but based on what Prosser showed us, this is a step in the right direction with the camera app, if it happens, and a phone OS that hasn't had a significant change since iOS 7's minimalist and flatter aesthetic. That has been a long time. Now, one more product that Bloomberg's Mark Gurman believes will get updated in the first half of 2025, the Mac Studio, who should see a chip upgrade with M4 Max and M4 Ultra chips, since you got the new M4 Pro that's in the current Mac Mini. That has been shown to outperform the current Mac Studio with an M2 Ultra. And yes, this happens in staggered upgrade cycles, but it will get taken care of this year. Mac Studio should be the fastest performing Mac that we see, other than maybe that Mac Pro later. Okay, now the second half of 2025 will be what you all expect to see, right? New iPhones and Apple Watches. A new entry-level Apple Watch SE, that's expected this year with a subtle refresh in design, with the Series 11 and Ultra 3 expected to pretty much keep the same design. Now, it's all about new features under the hood this time, and we've talked about it before here, that the Ultra 3 is expected to get satellite connectivity and 5G RedCap network access. Now, if you're wondering, what is 5G RedCap? That stands for reduced capability, and it's a 5G standard that balances cost, power consumption, and features for devices that just don't need the full capabilities of 5G. And this could benefit the Ultra 3 with improvements in battery life as well, beyond the roughly 2.5 days that I can get with it currently. So this year is also when we finally expect to see high blood pressure detection coming to both the Ultra and Series 11 models. So you got this combination of satellite connectivity and blood pressure sensors that make this year's Apple Watch lineup a whole lot more compelling for me. But I would like to see satellite in the Series 11 as well, but that has not been reported just yet. Now, the fall season, we know, isn't complete without the iPhone 17 lineup, and if you've been following along, you pretty much know what to expect. We'll have 4 models: the iPhone 17, iPhone 17 Pro, iPhone 17 Pro Max, and the brand new model that is currently being called the iPhone 17 Air. And I may not be the target consumer for this phone, but I'm all about a new design and a new direction that brings more to the table than the standard Plus model ever did. Now, the Air is targeted to be the thinnest iPhone to date, somewhere between 5 and 6 millimeters thick, with a form factor that will no doubt feel amazing in hand, but it'll also be more simplified with a base level A19 chip, a single lens rear camera system, and presumably a lower battery life compared to the Pro. Now, I look at this, and you might even call it something like the iPhone SE Pro type of phone, but the design will be intriguing. The iPhone Air is also, you look at it as a step towards getting even thinner for Apple's rumored foldable designs that could start rolling out as early as 2026, and the learnings that are pulled from that. The iPhone Pro lineup will also reportedly use Apple's new in-house design components with a combined Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip called Proxima, with other products getting it over time. And if you're not paying attention, if you look at what Apple's been doing, they're quietly moving back to their thin era of design. We saw it in the M4 iPad Pro, incredibly thin without a case, and we're now seeing it with the iPhone 17 Air. You know, when was the last time that people really talked about Apple as the pinnacle of design and tech? I think that it's definitely not in the same way that they used to, but this could be part of maybe reclaiming that narrative. And if that's the case, I'm also going to throw out a personal request to bring back the ultra-thin MacBook Air 12-inch as another product to highlight this renewed design prowess. And if you think it's a dumb idea, I think it's because you've never used one before. Yeah, I wouldn't video edit on it, but that thing was just like, so slim, so nice. And you got the improvements from today's processing power and the miniaturization of parts. I think it could be another showcase for the return of Apple peak design. Now, there are no reports that this is happening, and you might say, hey, Brian, they have the iPad Pro now in that spot. And I guess from a pricing standpoint, yeah, they kind of do, but it's still just not the same. Now, the MacBook Pros will also get their yearly update later in the year, and the expectation is that the design will remain the same, but you got to look at 2026, where we could see a significant revamp of the MacBook Pro lineup, since this will be the 20th anniversary of the MacBook Pro, and that feels like it could really be a big, big deal. Plus, you got a new Mac Pro desktop that's currently in development featuring a high-end Hydra chip, according to Gurman, but the timing of its release, that's not clear. And then still no word if we'll see any new Pro Display XDR, even if it's been 5 years since it was first released, or a new Studio Display. But it feels like if you're gonna do an update to those, it's gotta come with once the Mac Pro or all your high-end Macs are released. Now, accessories like AirTags, those will get a refresh with better range thanks to a new ultra-wideband chip inside, but the new design, that's not gonna be really new. It's expected to basically remain the same. Plus, HomePod Mini and the Apple TV set-top box, those are also expected to get updates by the end of the year with some connectivity to Apple's smart home ecosystem. And also, I know you're wondering, right? What about the Apple Vision Pro in 2025? Well, based on current reports, there is no expectation that a new headset will ship from Apple this year. We know there could be an unveiling, an announcement that might point to maybe a new model in 2026, but in 2025, don't expect any new hardware, but continued software improvements and then new immersive content, which is also always what just captures us the most from the headset right now. We know that Apple is working on a lower cost version of the headset right now, and they should be, along with actively looking at their own version of those lightweight, low tech, but techy enough glasses like the Meta Ray-Bans, which I've been screaming about since probably a few months after the main Apple Vision Pro came out, that they need to do something in that space, but none of those devices are expected to come this year. All right, everybody, that's gonna do it for this video, but that's pretty much everything we expect to see from Apple in 2025. There could be some more surprises, but I mean, that is a jam-packed year. We pretty much have a pulse on what's happening, and now it's just the waiting game for them to be officially released. So, hey everybody, if you like what you see, you know what to do. Give me that thumbs up, subs up, and then that notification bell, ding, to get all my latest videos when they drop. And if you want more of that Apple goodness, you can check out my weekly Apple Bits XL audio podcast with the latest stories and special guests. Plus, you can support all my content with an ad-free version of the podcast, early access to my content, and exclusive content at patreon.com/BrianTalk. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace and love.